This is Bill Johnson of the American Freedom Party. We're here for another edition of what is turning out to be every Tuesday. We're having a conference of international pundits, all national from around the world. And it used to be when Walter Winchell would start his broadcast, he would say, "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. North and South America." But now we've got it so, "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. World," because we've got people from all around the world here. And I'd like to start off by going around and introducing our panelists here today. Let's start off with Tom Sunic. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, just like William Johnson, I'm also a board member of the American Freedom Party, a former professor in the States, a former author, published a couple of books, folks, and I certainly appreciate and I admire students and the general audience who enjoys reading books. And I'm fluent in German, English, and French, which I don't consider as a special skill, but I guess it's just the means to certain other sources that help me enlarge my intellectual horizons. And just like most of the panelists that are now on the show, I'm certainly very much concerned about the situation. I can call it the process of uglification and a process of decadence going on in the United States of America and in Western and in Europe. As far as this, literally, we're not talking about tsunami, we are talking about the tornado or the hurricane of non-European migrants coming to Europe and the United States, and thereby also changing not just the racial profile of those countries, but also the cultural profile of those countries.
And Tom, to make it clear, you are a U.S. citizen and a Croatian citizen, and you're currently living in Croatia.
Yes, I currently live in Croatia, folks, and I'm a U.S. citizen. And please feel free to look at my website and my Facebook as well. All the more as I'm going to be in the States shortly, in about a month or so, and have a couple of lectures and a couple of conferences in New York, and possibly also in Utah, and possibly also in Pennsylvania and California. So if I can be of any assistance, particularly, I mean here, the students in the humanities and languages, if I can be of any assistance, please do write to me, tom.sunic@gmail.com.
What is your web address, Tom, please?
Excuse me?
What is your web address?
www.tomsunic.com.
Okay, now let's go on to Eddie O'Sullivan. Eddie, this is the first time we've met, I think. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, Eddie O'Sullivan's my name, and I'm here in the UK. And previously I was a long-time member of the British National Party. I'm not a member now and haven't been for about 3 years. I think they sort of lost their way a little bit as far as I was concerned. But when I was a member, I stood for election in 2 parliamentary elections. I stood for regular elections at the local level, also for the Welsh Assembly, the Scottish Parliament, and for the European Parliament. As you can see, we're here today. I didn't win any of them. I'm working on it.
Okay. Very good. Okay, and Frederick, give us a little background, a bio of yourself.
I am the representative of the Zuidlanders Civil Defense Organization in USA. We are touring here in the USA to raise funds and to raise awareness of what is happening in South Africa. Zuidlanders is constituted under international law, and it's the largest civil defense organization of its type in the world. That is to say, a non-state-owned civil defense organization. My real name is Simon Roche, or Roche if you prefer, R-O-C-H-E. And I see that somebody has very humorously used the nom de plume that I employed for many years before I was able to safely raise my head above the parapet.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks. I didn't know why you're going by that, so I got to put this on Do Not Disturb. Yikes. Okay, I think I did it. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, so we can safely call you Simon then.
Yes, you certainly can.
Okay, very good. And no one needs to introduce Kenn daily because there's enough calumny throwing around regarding his background that everybody knows what he's been doing. Unless you want to pipe in, Kenn, and tell us about yourself.
No, that's fine. I just wondered when Simon changes his name to Frederick. It was a little confusing, so I got it.
Yeah, you've got it. Oh, I think that it's the computer might be giving my name to Zoom. That is to say, the nom de plume, because I named the computer that.
Okay, now we've just switched it. Okay, very good then. All right, now we've got a lot of great things to talk about. But before we talk about, I've been getting emails from all around. In fact, I just got email from going to Japan, who were interested in setting up some sort of global alliance of nationalist parties. And I want to know what you guys think about this. I know this stuff has been tried in the past, but what do you guys think about that as an idea of getting nationalist leaders from around the world to come together somewhere to start working together? Eddie.
Well, yeah, I think it's pretty much essential. I mean, the fact is that our great enemy has pretty much limitless resources. You know, they've got limitless, I'll call them ground troops. I could also call them the insane and the retarded, but that would be probably not politically correct. But the fact is that, and we find it so much in Britain, that individually, if you're trying in a small way to draw people together as nationalists and patriots into a single unified body, we find that we get infiltrated, we get enemies externally, we get sort of other parties set up to take away our vote. And really, on a small level, at a national level, we're always going to get beat. We're always going to be on the back foot. However, I do feel that if there's an international cooperation, when people see that people from nations from all over the world have the same idea, you know, and they've got the same ideals and the same values and the same morals, and they're coming together and working as one, I think people will start to take notice. I think we could challenge the controlled media.
Eddie, what about holding it in the UK? Would that be possible? Would there be solid ground troops to help put it together? Or what do you think about holding it in the UK? Or where would you think we should hold it?
Well, in the UK or any European nation, it depends who's involved, you know. We've had guys before that we've invited over from the United States, and straight away, the Home Secretary's been tipped off by people who don't like us that much. And Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, she blocked, I think, Matthew Heimbach from coming to see us. Okay. Now, I don't think Matthew Heimbach has ever hurt anyone. I don't think he's ever shot anyone or blown anyone up. You know, people who have shot people and blown people up in Africa, they're quite welcome here. They can. Okay. You know, so I think it'd be difficult to hold it in a European nation.
Okay, but we don't want to hold it in a place that they will shut us down for. We want to hold it in a place that is a safe harbor, and plus we have people on the ground. Tom, what are your thoughts about this international alliance getting something together? If it's a good idea, where and when and how and what for?
Now, first, Bill, we got to clarify some words and some concepts. I guess this word international nationalism sounds a little bit, how can I say, contradictory, almost like an oxymoron. And I guess we first need to clarify that. I'm primarily interested in a bondage in a strong bondage of peoples and nations of European extraction. And here I'm specifically referring here to Americans of white origin, or rather whites of European origin. And I certainly have absolutely nothing against the non-European nations and their different forms of nationalism. But at this stage, I'm primarily interested in fostering the ties between, let's say, Serbs, Croats, Irish, English, Cataloons, and the Portuguese and different European nations, which let's put it bluntly, they've been at odds with each other for a very long period of time. So, ironically, or rather paradoxically, this is probably a historical an irony of history, rather, that this tsunami of non-European migrants may be helping us, ironically, to strengthen our inter-European ties. I guess with all due respect for Ndebele or Zulus or for Kurds or for Alawites or for the Sikhs, I simply at this stage I'm not interested in deepening or actually looking for some context with those people, as I said, with all due respect, because they certainly know very little about my culture, about my drama, about my sense of the tragic, and about my, and neither do I expect from them to embrace me fully. But I'm certainly very much interested as to how, for instance, the whites, let's say in Arizona or New Mexico or in Glendale, or for that matter in Birmingham, will be susceptible, or rather receptible to some of my lectures, some of my speeches, whereby I always keep insisting we gotta bridge those gaps. And of course, on the purely individual level, I guess that's something very harsh to say. We gotta sort of tone down our egos and just give a
where do you think it should be held? Where do you think it should be held?
It should be held anywhere. It should be in the United States of America, or for that matter in the UK. Well, it doesn't really matter. It can be in Europe. I guess the point, the location, is not so much important. For that matter, it can be held in Auckland, in New Zealand, or for that matter in Canberra, or for that matter in Sydney. What really counts is our unity. And I mean what I mean by unity, and I said that, I will say it again. We just need to tone down a little bit our egos. We have to tone down our self-serving promotions, but we always have to look at the whole, and we got to be of service to our community, not to ourselves.
Yeah, we can do that. But the point is that if we held it in Canada or if we held it in the UK, we could be shut down. If we held it in the United States, we wouldn't get shut down if we held it at a federal or a state facility. Simon, what's your thought about this?
Well, as you know from previous editions, we, speaking for the Saitlanders, are passionately enthused by this thing because we're in a crisis in South Africa where it has become, to some extent, wrong to be white. You are judged now for being rather than for doing. And so as far as we're concerned, this is a long overdue thing. We're always a little bit shy about this kind of stuff, Bill, because it comes across as the tail wagging the dog when 4 million whites in South Africa are the first to say we should be doing this or we should be doing that. And it's so exciting for us to be in a situation where we're dealing with Americans who are taking an initiative, even though you are in a less fragile situation than we are. You know, you have less reason, less incentive, but it's absolutely thrilling.
Well, we have a lot of apology to render towards you and a lot to make up because we destroyed your country. America destroyed South Africa. And so we need to make amends of that. And then we will try to do that in the coming generation. Okay, that's a good framework. We need to now get into the substance of what we're talking about. And Kenn has sent around a variety of emails of articles that are important to discuss. And I always like the ones he picks because they're current and they're controversial. So, Kenn, can you give us the first topic that you sent around, and we can discuss? Oh, okay. I know you're going to say Indiana. Wait, can you put us all up in your house? There'll be 800 of us. Okay. All right. Go on. Okay, if you want to answer this, raise your hand and I'll call on you. Okay, well, I'll start off by saying, they got to raise them to their ear, you know, and I can see everybody's ear. Okay, Eddie, go ahead.
Yeah, Italy's an interesting case, really, along with Greece to some extent. The fact is, you've got the Italian Navy playing a big part in this, and this is the Italian people's own navy. And when these African fellows all cram themselves into one of these leaky boats, they see a warship, an Italian warship, and they say, okay, and the boat starts sinking somehow, and the Italians come and rescue them, and they save them, and they give them medical attention, and they feed them, and they give them water. Now, this could be happening 5 or 6 miles off the coast of Libya. But they don't take them back to Libya, 5 or 6 miles. They take them to Italy, which is a couple of 100 miles away. And then once they're in Italy, then they go through the process of being introduced into Europe. That's like gateway into Europe. Now, I can understand the Italian people. They're like us. They're kind people. They're generous people. They don't want to see anybody suffering. But a thank you would be nice, wouldn't it? And I don't think that the Italians feel that they're being thanked enough for the help they get, especially when they're being beaten, shot, raped, mugged, having their houses burnt down. I think it's right and only decent and proper that, what was it, 3% some years ago?
3%, yeah, 3%.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's 50%. It's going to happen, isn't it? It's going to happen.
My comments are twofold. First, several years ago, I read an article. They interviewed a Korean woman who'd established herself in Italy, and she had a restaurant there. And she said, they talked about her immigrating there. She says, well, the Italians, they don't have children, they have dogs. The Italians, they don't have children, they have cats. I have children, I'm staying. This is my country, I'm Italian. And I thought, oh, this is, that's kind of true in many respects, and it's too bad. The second comment is that I think if they polled only the Italians, the rates would go down because the Italians, like the rest of the white people, are so brainwashed that they will ignore and reject their own kind in favor of letting others come in. The ones that are already here from other countries, they think, I got it good. I left Libya behind. I don't want to live around Libyans. I want to live around Italians. So they probably say, don't let any more in. So I think the rate would go down from 50%. But it is good that they're finally getting a majority realizing that something needs to be done. Any of the other two, Simon or Tom, you want to comment?
Well, first and foremost, we got to make clear that we can decipher who the real enemy is as far as this migration and tsunami is concerned. I think it's completely false and even counteractive to talk about the bad migrants, the bad refugees, and just use dirty names against them. Those who are responsible are all corrupted elites, or our own politicians. So we got to start from there, and even we've got to go a little bit further. We have to ask the question: who legitimizes the speeches, the narrative of all politicians, or corrupted politicians, rather. And of course, then we come to this realm of academics and cultural hegemony. And I would I think that we need to focus on the cultural hegemony of leftist or cultural Marxist or whatever you want to call them, Antifas, who basically control the humanities in social sciences all over the West, from Berkeley all the way down to Cape Town, all the way down to Zagreb. I mean, you literally have 80% of professors and opinion makers who create this new narrative, who create this new discourse, which in turn is adopted by Frau Merkel, Mr. Juncker, or Juncker, as they call him in the European Commission. And then in turn, it seeps over into the media. This is where the real problem is. The problem is not with some unhygienic, or what do you call it, some guy from Tunisia or Libya who comes to Germany and who doesn't even know how to use the toilet. I guess we can crack jokes about him. We can use some dirty terms about him. But he is not the problem. The problem are all corrupted elites.
Tom, you made a good point. It is not just the corrupted elites. You're talking about all of the professors, all of the educators, even the adjunct professors. And what it is, it's partially because for the last 50 years, it's been popular to support these left-wing open border principles. And people want to be popular. And from an economic capitalist point of view, they're thinking, oh, I have my job at the university because we have so many, we're teaching so many people from around the world. I don't want to lose my job as a professor. We better keep our doors open and have our students coming in. So we do have to address address it and realize that it's not just the elites, but it's also at every level from the middle class on up. And we have to change. If we change the mindset of the middle class, and it's changing just like in Italy, then we begin to change the mindset of the elites because they will listen to us if we have power.
But first and foremost, we have to start with universities and higher education. This is where the real problem is. And this is where many, many conservative politicians, including the GOP activists, they make a terrible mistake. They think that they can change the political process outside in the political arena, in Congress, or for that matter, in the Senate. No, you have to make those changes first at universities. I remind again your audience, over 80% of professors, opinion makers, who actually brainwash your kids, our kids, they are they have this Marxist pedigree. They don't care about the borders. They don't care about the race. If you want to call them race traitors for that matter, or for that matter, they don't even care about white culture at all. And I think this is where the serious problem is, since we have to solve this problem first.
Very good. Okay, I want to move on to another topic. Ken, what's the next issue that we need to talk about? Please fill us in on that.
This is kind of an interesting topic that's taking place in Italy. It says, France announces plans for 2 migrant shelters in, how do you pronounce this, Tom? Lille. How do you pronounce that in France?
How do you say? Ill. If it's it's like island, right?
No, it's Lille. Tom, it's Lille. It's he's talking
Lille. It's down up north. I was a speaker once. Lille. It's very close to the border, to the Atlantic Sea. It's close to the La Manche.
Yeah,
Lille.
Simon, do you speak French, by the way?
A little bit.
Little bit. All right, there's a French influence in South Africa. I know that. But the story is they have built 2 what they call shelters for, using their term, these people are migrants. I call them Islamic insurgents. And it seems to me, guys, for them to do this, and the idea is in Calais, they say they're having problems sleeping out in the ground in the streets wherever, so they want to build them these shelters so they can be nice and comfy. In my opinion, what they're doing is they're lending aid and comfort to the enemy, because I see these people literally, not figuratively, literally as Islamic insurgents, hell-bent on destroying Western culture, particularly France.
Yeah, any comments on that? Raise your hand if you want to talk. Simon, raise your hand.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to hear Simon. We kind of left him out the last one.
All right, Simon.
Well, this is, of course, it's astonishing, and you wonder how it's even possible that people's minds can be so twisted. We've seen the French elections recently in which Macron won, and Macron is, this is bad for us. It's bad for French people. It's bad for white culture. It's bad for French identity. It's bad for the history of Christianity in Western Europe. And yet the French voted for this guy. How is this possible? It's unbelievable. And I think that one of the things, I agree strongly with what Tom Sunic said a minute ago about where the problems lie, very strongly. But I think that somewhere we're missing something. And it will be fascinating for me to watch and to participate as we discover that key that we're missing. How is it that people's minds can be so brainwashed, so counterintuitively? I mean, they're not just being brainwashed, but they're being brainwashed against every intuition, given the circumstances and the environment that they're in and the truths. But sooner or later, we're going to find the answer. We're going to work this thing out, and we're going to find the key to rectifying it. I'm positive of that, because we've seen so many tremendous improvements in our circumstances in just the past 8 or 9 months, largely due to one single event, namely the election of Donald Trump, which precipitated a courage, and that courage, that willingness to stick your head above the parapet, has now led to further development of the explosion of Identity Europa and this one and that one and the other one. So for me, it's all about the key. What is this thing missing? How is it that I can't tell Mrs. Lefleur in wherever, Marseille, the truth and get her to believe me, but she'll believe the bull dust that has her, cutting her nose off to spite her face.
Okay, Simon, this is the situation. I can only speak from my background, but when I was in high school, if you look to see who were the popular ones, what were the popular issues, the popular people, the popular issues were all on the globalists, the internationalists, the mixing of the races. That was popular. And if you stood up for who you were as a white person, you were hated. And this was not just a high school phenomenon. This was a college phenomenon. This was a work phenomenon. This was throughout all of the Western world. To be popular, you embrace the principles that Macron embraces now, or that Trudeau embraces in Canada. And now, because of Donald Trump and because of you and all of us here, that's slowly changing. And eventually, our views are going to be the popular ones. I was a nationalist before nationalism was popular. So then we're going to see some changes taking place, and it's going to come fast and faster until we're at the tipping point. Any comment from Eddie or Tom? Eddie, go ahead.
Just on that point there. There's this tendency, particularly for teenagers, people in the late teens, when they're forming their identity and having it formed for them by things like popular culture, for instance, which the cultural Marxist has by the throat, by the way. And there's this thing where you shouldn't stand out. You shouldn't be better than someone else. It's frowned upon. When you have school sports days where everybody wins, like this tendency, don't stand up, don't worry, everybody's fine. And it discourages the actual human nature. It's human nature to try and improve yourself. It's human nature to be better tomorrow than you were today. And if that's being crushed out of you by the education system, by the manipulated mass media, by popular culture, by enforcement, these are young minds, and they're malleable minds, and their minds are influenced. And going back to what Tom said, what a powerful, valid point. We're in the universities. If we can just flip that over and make it so that people do want to be better tomorrow than they were today.
But also, Tom, I think, mentioned, or someone mentioned early on, that we have, and maybe it was you, Eddie, we have in our inner nature, in ourselves, the goal to help everybody out. I mean, we gather together in all sorts of groups all around the Western world to help non-whites improve themselves by setting up in our meetings, in our PTA meetings, in our colleges, in our Rotaries, and our Lions clubs, everywhere. We meet time after time to help the non-whites raise themselves up. That's in our nature. But nowhere do we meet to help ourselves. And so we have to realize that helping ourselves, saving Western civilization is good for the entire world, and that's what's humane.
Has it always been like that, though? I mean, wasn't there a time when white people, before we were brainwashed, I guess you would call that before brainwashing?
Well, no, even if you look at the colonial era, when we went in colonialism, of course, there was some taking advantage of the local population, but there was still a strong altruistic streak to help to convert them to Christianity, to deliver medical supplies, to help their industry, to build their infrastructure. So I believe that as long as I can remember, we did have a desire to help other people. I mean, when my ancestors settled in this country, we would give sugar and blankets and firearms to help the Indians that didn't even know how to make fire.
And education.
Because that was in our nature. And what did they do? They killed us. They scalped us. We helped them. They hurt us. That's in our nature. comments?
Yes, Bill, you're quite right. I mean, this false altruism, this phenomenon of altruism, rather, needs to be studied a little bit further. So, of course, we don't have time now. I could refer you easily to massive literature. But Garrett Hardin, he's from California. You may have heard of him. He passed away a long time ago. And he actually wrote about this obsessive altruism. And to some extent, we should not forget that this comes from the Christianity as well. You're quite right, Bill. I mean, we have lots of empirical evidence for it. Whites generally, even in India, or for that matter, even in look. I don't know how folks know about South Africa, but I've never been there. I've talked to many people, and I'm sure Mr. Roche can tell us about this. Look, South Africa used to be one of the most productive countries in Africa at all, even for the blacks. Even before this end of the apartheid, even in the 70s and 80s, there were millions of people coming from up north, the blacks, just asking for some regulation in their own lives, for some order in their own lives. So there are 12 different tribes, now. Anyway, Mr. Roche can tell us more about that. So wherever you have the whites, you see that the elements of culture, you see the elements of order. Now, of course, what happened after the Second World War, we know that, and we have the whole change of the narrative. And I'm happy I'll be talking about this in my lectures now in the States shortly. So it's a very complicated issue. But again, I would only suggest to our listeners and our readers that we have to tone down with our obsessive altruism, because this is very typical for the whites, not for other races. I've lived long enough in Arabic countries. As a kid, I traveled in India as well, and I've noticed that, you notice that on the daily basis, that blacks are different in different cultures, or for that matter, Arabs or Indians in, let's say, in Birmingham, or Pakistanis in Leeds, they stick to each other, and they usually help each other. You cannot imagine on a massive level those people would help out whites in distress. For instance, when an earthquake hits Moldavia, or for that matter, when an earthquake hits, let's say Montenegro, I'm just talking from the top of my head, we will not see that people in Saudi Arabia or Qatar will open up their purses and give money for those people who were hit by this disaster. Whereas, whites, look what happened just a couple of years ago in Haiti. Such a massive amount of help was streaming in to help those people. There were 20,000 people who died in this earthquake.
Okay, all right.
Sum it up, whites generally have this sense of guilt and this obsessive altruism, which verges on the grotesque in my eyes.
All right. Well, we are out of time. Those of you who want to make final comments, we'll let you make the comments, and then we'll close up for this week's show.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to hear Simon respond to what Tom just said.
If I may, I would like to say something else. I've been itching to say this, and I've been reserving it, which is why I didn't want to speak initially. And that's a response to the topic that we didn't bring up, the woman who was raped. And we needn't go into it. I understand that we're out of time, but if I may, I'd like my... Okay, well, then I'll respond very briefly to Tom, and then I'll move on to this other topic, which I think all of you guys will find fascinating and which I can report firsthand. So my response to Tom is, of course, yes. In South Africa, it is a very well-known thing that in the successful years of South Africa, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, South Africa generated, and this is a fact, people can verify it for themselves, more electricity every day than the other 51, it was then 52 countries in Africa, we're now 54, but it was 52, more electricity than the other 51 countries of Africa put together. Now, this is, of course, not possible. It's not possible for one human being to do more work or to achieve more than another 51 people. It's humanly impossible, but it's a fact. South Africa had more tarred roads than the other 51 countries of Africa put together. South Africa produced every day more clean running water than the other 51 countries of Africa put together. If you visit, if any of you guys are so inclined, and you do make a pilgrimage to the famous Vilakazi Street in Soweto to go and see where Nelson Mandela's house is very close to Bishop Desmond Tutu's house, both on the same street, these two Nobel Prize winners, you almost have no choice but to drive past what was the world's largest hospital, Baragwanath Hospital. So this is, I think, without elaborating on it too long and taking up too much time, an apposite response to Tom Sunic, but there's something else just to tack on to it. it is for these reasons that the black population of South Africa went from just over 2 million in 1903 to just over 40 million in 1990. Now, we know that in clinical terms, a generation is 25 years. Some people procreate at the age of 11, God forbid, and some at the age of 40. Good luck to them. But the nominal period of a generation in sociology and anthropology is 25 years. Between 1990 and 1903 is 87 years. So just about 3.5 generations. People have to understand this fundamental mathematics. To have a 2,000% population explosion in 3.5 generations, you and I couldn't do it. Not if we practiced all day and all night. It demands, I hope I'm not being crude, an amount of sexual intercourse with a number of partners that we can't begin to comprehend. And that became feasible by virtue of the health and the clean running water and the famous South African 4-room houses that were built for the blacks, and so on and so forth, ad infinitum, this fascination with altruism, which Tom Sunic correctly says comes out of Christianity. And speaking as a Christian, speaking as a practicing Christian, somebody who has no gripe with Christianity in principle, this needs to be laid at the doors of the pastors who've corrupted our faith so that it barely resembles what it was 400 years ago. For 1,600 years, our forefathers had a certain particular understanding of the gospel of Jesus Christ, of the message of Jesus Christ. Along comes post-modernity, and we suffer from this illusion, this delusion of cumulative wisdom. You know, in other words, I must be cleverer than my father, whereas the opposite is true. We're idiots, and we've been misled by idiots. That's my little rant on that topic, but I'd like to go on.
Excellent. You brought up some points that I had never considered before. I really like that diatribe. Let's do some more. Now continue to talk about the rape issue.
Well, this past weekend, I was very privileged, thanks to the American Freedom Party, Republican Broadcasting Network, and Tom Bevington of the South Africa SOS .org website in Southern California, to be enabled to attend Jared Taylor's Ameren conference in Montgomery Bell State Park in Tennessee. And it was terrific. These guys arranged for me, first, that I could attend, secondly, accommodation, and thirdly, they arranged for me to speak. It was lovely. The one part that was a little bit dicey, though, was the arrival of Antifa. We had about 60 or 70 Antifa people, and I'll make one brief comment before coming to the real point. I'm sorry to say this, because there, but for the grace of God, go I, and I believe this sincerely as a Christian, but the clear evidence of the genetic differences between the people who were inside the hall, tall, upright, good-looking, enthusiastic, clear-eyed, bright people, was versus the people outside. And God, you know, I understand this is ugly, fat, foul-mouthed, straggly-haired, horrible, horrible, horrible. You know, I was in the military in South Africa, as we all had to be, and I have not heard such language, really, literally, since I was in the army in 1991, if I remember my dates correctly. So 26 years ago, the language was unbelievable. But the best part is that they were led by a woman called Lacey somebody or other, and she was hurling insults at us and being very, very ugly. And my companion, the lady who's traveling with me and helping me, and
you need to follow that gal. She's cute.
Yeah, she's a superstar. Said to me, "Oh, this is the girl who was raped." And I said, "What, are you joking with me?" She said, yeah. You know, everybody knows about it. I said, "You're pulling my leg." Lo and behold, as we were standing on the balcony of this Montgomery Bell State Park restaurant, looking down at these people, swearing at us, calling us horrible names. She pulled out her phone and brought up this woman's own blog. And in this blog, she describes how I didn't read the whole thing, it's a long story, many pages, but she describes how a Muslim guy abducted her and held her in a secure house. She couldn't get out of the place in Turkey, and raped her daily for weeks and weeks, running into months. I don't remember how many months, but it was more than a month. And yet she's standing there. And by the way, she concludes her blog by saying, but look, I do understand it's not his fault because that's their culture. This is what we're dealing with. Here comes a woman to this conference and spews this venom. These are horrible words, fundamentally blaming you and me as European conservatives, people out of this very particular paradigm that binds us together, for something that happened to her in Turkey. She's saying this guy is innocent, but and just in case somebody feels that there's a gap in the syllogistic logic here, let me be explicit. She's saying this man is innocent, but you are bad because you don't reject his culture and you don't accept it. So implicitly, you have to take responsibility. The fault is yours. So you are my rapist, even though I was lying on my back, God forbid, under this man. It's too much for your mind.
Okay, but Simon, I think you can appreciate this more than most. Let's revisit her in 5 years. I bet you she's going to be holding signs in support of us, because these are the type of people that change their opinion slowly over time. When her views become less popular and our views become more popular, she could very well change her views. I hope.
I hope so too, because we have a responsibility to have pity for people who've suffered.
In any event, I think on that note, we should terminate this, because that's a very good ending, and I hate to drag things on end on a high note. We should. All right, so thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you, Ken, and whoever you have on next week, Tuesday.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.